Hello everyone, welcome back to the 5 video series of Kotlin, and this is the video number 3, Kotlin functions. In this video we'll discuss about how to create different functions in Kotlin, what are inline functions, how to use recursion using tail recursion feature of Kotlin, what are lambda functions, and what are higher order functions. So let's jump into the code with my favorite IntelliJ IDE, and let's try to create a basic simple function. So a function in Kotlin is declared using the fun keyword. So much fun, right? All right. So let's create a function named as square, and it will accept one input parameter. Let's call it x, and it will be of a type integer. And this function will return me an integer type of value. So the return type for this function is integer. So let's say return statement, and it will return x into x, which is x squared. Let's run this function by calling it in our println statement directly, square, and we pass in a number, let's say 2. And let's write something here. Square of 2 is equals to, we write the dollar symbol, and we also write the expression here using the curly braces, and we end our string. Okay, so let's run this program, and the square of 2 is 4. Good enough. We can also skip this return statement and directly write the body using the equals to method, and this is going to work perfectly fine in Kotlin. So there's going to be no issues with that. Let's create one more function, say hello. It will take a name of string type, and it will print hello and the name of the person. So let's call the function here, println. Let's say the name is Joe. Let's say hello to Joe. Oh, sorry. Let me call the method, say hello, and pass in Joe here. Okay, let's run this, and it says hello Joe. Okay, cool. So now we know how to create functions. This is the name of the function. Here is the parameter, and this is the parameter type, which type is the of the parameter, and you can also specify the return type of this function, which is an integer here, and in this case it is unit by default. So in Java or C, if you're already familiar with those languages, we had a void return type for those methods, but here we have unit. So you can also choose to skip it. It will work perfectly fine without that as well. Let's also see what are named arguments. So let's call my function, let's say hello again, and I'm typing in a named argument here, name equals to, and I can print a name here, let's say Phil. So thing over here in blue is a named argument. So this works best if we have a lot of parameters for a function. Let's say I'm displaying display data, and it has a lot of parameters. For example, let's say name, and then age, and then which class do you study in. Let's skip the class. Let's say the subject that you study. All right, I think this is good enough for now, and it will display that hi, my name is name, and my age is age, and I study dollar subject. Good. So let's call this method from here, println $sign in the inverted commas, display data, and then okay, let's start the expression here, end the expression, display data dot, display data, and we pass in the values here. So here we can do something like this. Name is equals to, let's say, Karan, and then we can pass the, this is supposed to be a string, not a strict math type, and we can pass the age equals to 27, and we can pass the subject studying is computer science. Alright, let's go and run this program. So this is basically using named arguments in Kotlin. Hi, my name is Karan, I'm age 27 and I study computer science. Good. So this is the way you can add named arguments. It works well if you have a lot of parameters. It's helpful in defining which parameter should have which value. Alright, so we can do one more thing here. If the user does not specify an age here, we're giving it a default value of 12. So here I can choose to skip the age, and I can say default arguments. So here I don't need to necessarily specify age. If I do not specify the age, it will by default be 12. So let's see. Hi, my name is Karan and my age is 12. So in that case, the age will be 12. Okay, let's go further and create another function. Function get sum of where args, and it is a type of integer, where args, and we can type nums, nums, and this function will also return a type of integer, and this function is give me the sum of values, or you can say calculate the sum of values. So this function will calculate the sum of values, and what we can do here is we can create a variable named sum, provide it a value of 0, and then we can call for each property on the numbers, and for each number we will, let's call it each number, we'll add it into the sum. Alright, and now we will return the value of sum. So let's call this method getSum from our main method. Println sum of 1, 2, 3, 4 is $symbol, and we call getSum, and we pass in all those values separated by comma. So it will take a bunch of values just like an array and show me the result, which is the sum. So the sum of 1, 2, 3, and 4 is 10. 4 plus 3, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Alright, good enough. So let's go further and talk about extension functions. So what are extension functions in Kotlin? Let's create an extension function, say fun string dot greet hello, and what it will do is it will print a statement with hello, and whatever string object we are passing, it will print that. So it will take a name and you can send greet hello to that person. So let's call this method from here. Okay, So let's say I have a variable named name equals to, let's take any name, let's say my name Karan, and then we call name dot search the method greet hello. So this method was earlier not there in the string class, but we have sort of created an extension function for this string class which can be called on any string object. So let's run this program. It will say hello Karan, and we can change the value of this variable to anything, whatever you like, and it will use the value of that variable and display the value hello Joe. All right. So this is about extension functions. They come in really handy, are a really useful feature in Kotlin language. So you can also go ahead and pass any parameter here. You can pass in, let's say, the name of, instead of a name, let's say you pass a value a, and then you can also use to print that value and send the value here, which can be, let's say, 1. Control Shift R, running the program, say hello 1. So you can use your parameters along with the object that was called, that is calling this method. So you can do both of the things. All right. So let's go further to Lambda functions. Now, the Lambda functions are also called as anonymous functions because it has no name. So let's create a Lambda function here. So Lambda function is no name. Let me create a variable here, which is sum, and initialize it with a Lambda function. So this is basically an empty Lambda function. Here I'm going to create a parameter number 1, which is of type integer, and here's a parameter 2 for that Lambda function, which is also of type integer. Now the body of the Lambda function will be basically adding these two values, num1 and num2, and it will return that value inside sum. So let's go to the main method and print the sum here. Sum of 10 and 20 is $symbol sum, and pass in the values 10, comma 20. Okay, so we need to have an expression here. The curly braces are for that, and let's call this. Let's run this program. It will say the sum of 10 and 20 is 30, which is returning from here. The parameters for this Lambda function are num1 and num2, which are both of integer type, and they are returning this. They are calculating this expression, which is the body of the Lambda function. And we can call the Lambda function using sum variable, which is getting the value from there. Okay, so this is for the Lambda functions. Let's go to a higher order function. So a function that accepts or returns another function is called a higher order function. So let's see what exactly does it mean. Here I've created some example in the PPT. A higher order function, let's say we have a method function hello, which accepts one parameter as name of data type string and has some body. And now we have another function fun, my function, which also accepts one parameter of type string, and it also accepts another parameter which accepts a function type value. The first parameter accepts a string type value and the second parameter accepts a function type value. So let me explain this thing to you. So this is the name of the parameter, which is name in this case, and in this case it is my function, my func. And then again we have a colon now, which means that it will tell me which type of value does this parameter take. So it takes in a function which we know because we are using a round brackets, and it takes a function which also takes another parameter of type string, and it returns unit. So hello is the perfect example for this, and we can pass in hello to this function. So the way you can pass hello to my function is by using this memory reference operator. You can use that for passing the method. So let's go back to the code and use it. So let me create a function for you. Let's call it demo. It takes a string and it will do nothing else but just print hello and the string. Let's call it name for now. Hello. Okay. And let me create, this is a normal function, basically, normal function. And let me create a higher order function now. So let's call this function as my higher order function. Alright, so this takes a value of name, and it also takes an input parameter as a function. So let's call it my function for now and give it the return type. So it takes a return type of a function which takes a parameter of string and returns a unit. So now let's give this method a body, which will do nothing major, but it will call the function passed into this with the value of name. Alright, so let's call this function now, and the way we can call it is by calling this method and passing in let's say a name which is let's take a new name for now. I'm literally running out of names. Let's call it Adam. Alright, and now we pass in a function named demo like this by using a reference operator. So we're passing in this function inside this function, like in this parameter, or like this. So let's run this program, and we can write a print statement here. This is my higher order function. Okay, let's run this program now. This is my higher order function, and this function, basically demo, is passed into it, which is being called here. So this is an example of a higher order function where it takes a parameter as an input, as another. So we can say takes a function as another parameter. Alright, so this is it for the higher order functions. Let's jump on to inline functions now. Let's see what are inline functions. So basically inline functions are so let's talk about inline functions now. So when we're using a higher order function, they impose certain kind of penalties. For example, each function is an object. So let's jump on the PPT for now and see an inline function. So here again we have a simple hello function which takes one parameter as name and has some body with it. And when we call that function hello from the main method, it will basically create some kind of memory which will be like initializing an object. So it's same as initializing an object, and when we call that function again hello, it will again utilize some memory. So I'm not saying this is exact 2 bytes or 3 bytes, it's just some random value. It can be anything, but when we call the main function, it take some value here. It is initializing that method as an object, and when we call the hello method here, it is again initializing it as an object here, and when we call hello again, it is again initializing it as an object here, which will take some memory. So now let's take an example of an inline function. Let's make this function as inline, and then what will happen is that when we call the hello function from the main function and we run this program, the main method will be the only one which will be initialized as an object, and the main method will be modified. So which means that the inline modifier will bring the functions to the call site and new object declaration will not happen. This will save the memory, and in some cases where we can run into a Stack Overflow error, this will help to save that as well. So let's go back to the code and try to create an inline function. So there's one more thing associated with inline functions, that we should avoid to create those methods as inline which have a large body. We should only do it for functions which have a small body. And also let's see something right now. Let's call this function as inline and see what happens. So I'm getting a bit of a suggestion from Kotlin compiler that expected performance impact from inlining is insignificant, and inlining works best for functions with parameters of functional types, which means that inline modifier here is not of much value. But if I use the inline modifier here for a method which takes another method as an input parameter, here it makes actual sense. So let's go run this program. So in this case, the my function will be replaced by, instead of calling this and declaring the memory, it will actually be replaced by this line of code, and whatever the value we are passing in the name. So when we compile this code, due to inline, no object memory will be declared for this method, but it will bring all the code from the body of this method from here to here. I hope this makes sense. Don't freak out if you are not able to understand this in one go. Just try to create your own inline method, and you will have a better understanding of it. Alright, so inline function is covered, and there's also one more thing which is called as no inline modifier. And I can choose this, let's say I want to choose that this method should not be inlined. So I can add a no inline modifier here, and in this case it doesn't make any sense because this is the only method which is as a parameter. So if you are not inlining that, then there is no sense in using the inline keyword. But if we do something like this, let's copy this code and paste it here, and we add another function here, and let's take another parameter here and let's call it my function1, which accepts another parameter as string, and it returns a type of unit. And let's call it here again my function1 with the same value as name. So here let's call this method my another higher order function, and let's call it over here and pass in some values. We can pass in the name here, and we have to pass two methods here. So we'll pass the demo method again. So here in this case we have an inline modifier, but let's say I don't want this method to be inline, so I can add a modifier no inline to this, which will make that only this method will be inline and this method will not be inline. So at the time of compilation, this will change to basically this statement at hello name, and this method will not be inline. Okay, cool. So I think this is it for this video. If you have any questions, please comment in the video below, and all this code will be available to you in a GitHub link in the description. So that's good for you guys. So if you have any suggestions, please write down in the comment box below and we'll make some videos on that. Thank you and see you next time. Bye bye.